today we are with FALLUJAH, US band from previously in San Francisco, like my friends from Death Angel.
Yes, sir.
And now you are in Los Angeles, right?
Yep.
So wonderful. It's your fifth album, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And if you like death metal, technical and brutal, but sometimes it's a real journey. Sometimes if you want to escape, you have some tracks wonderful, and it's a long journey, right?
For sure. It's definitely supposed to be a psychedelic, mind-melting journey, not just it's not pop songs. It's for sure supposed to take you somewhere and
So
keep you there.
what about this new lineup and then this new era for the band?
What about it? I mean, I'm pretty stoked about it. It's pretty incredible. I mean, we've got Evan Brewer on bass. I mean, if anybody knows about him, legendary bass player, but I mean, his talent is just so immense. He's so good at writing. He's so good at finding himself in the pocket and taking the song to the next level, not getting in the way of anything. I mean, that's pretty exciting having him on the record. Another pretty exciting thing is having Kyle on the record. Kyle just joined during probably second halfway through writing the record, and just feel so lucky we were able to find him. We were doing auditions looking for people, and when we heard his audition, it was just unreal how good it was. And the second part of the audition was just having him write his own lyrics and phrasing over one of the new songs, and it just came out so good. I was just blown away by it. And when we finally invited him to work on the album with us, he put so much work into it, more work than I've seen a lot of people put into the band. And I mean, it's pretty clear when you hear the record, like the amount of care that was put into his phrasing and his lyrics. It takes it to the next level. So yeah, it's really exciting. The new lineup is really exciting for me, and it's also exciting for me to write a record like this. You know what I mean? I was really experimenting with the last record with like different textures and sounds, and I was trying to go into a different direction, kind of refresh myself. So it's kind of cool to go back into this area of like super tech riffs, but also very prog, sections that, take you on like a journey from super lows to super intense highs, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of dynamics. And the fact that we had so much time to work on the record, we were able to like attempt like really crazy ideas and know we were going to have time to record them, so we spent that entire 2 years working on the record basically, and going back through the record and making sure every single part was perfect and there was no parts that maybe needed more attention or kind of were a lull in the song. Because every once in a while, I mean, you're working on a record that's 55 minutes long, there's going to be sections that you kind of miss out that maybe need more attention, and we were able to do that. We were able to go through everything and make it perfect, expand on parts, maybe get rid of parts that weren't really helping the song and its energy, you know what I mean? And so it's really awesome for me. It's just one of the coolest records I've been able to work on. I'm super proud how it came out. Some records, you get rushed and some ideas didn't come out the way you wanted it, and you didn't really have time to go back and see if you could try other stuff. With this one, we pulled out all the stops and just went for it completely. So it's really cool to have it done. It took so long.
So obviously, like all the metal bands that I interviewed, you had a lot of time to record the stuff and maybe to re-record riffs and vocals and everything. But what about the previous members?
Yes.
Did they leave because of the COVID? And for this period, a lot of people changed their life.
Yeah,
lives.
I mean, you pretty much nailed it. I mean, inferring on what everybody else is going through. But yeah, I mean, some members have been in the band for a really long time. Some members had not been in the band for a very long time. But, for the people that have been there for a super long time, like it makes perfect sense. You've been touring with me for 10 to 12 years. We did some pretty incredible things. And yeah, I mean, when the pandemic hits and you have really no way of knowing when it's going to end, there's no way of depending or scheduling your life around like, oh, these tours are going to happen, like Scott's going to finish working on this part of the record. We will meet up at this time. You kind of schedule out your life. It all kind of, feels like you're doing something. But when you're kind of like thrown into the chaos, you know what I mean? And you kind of just have to trust what we're working on is gonna be heard one day or be toured on one day or be released, and things are gonna continue on. It's kind of hard to do. And I mean, some of us like put our heads down and says, yeah, let's just go for it. Fuck it. If our tours got canceled, then we're just gonna sit down and work on the record and make it as crazy as possible. But understandably, some people was like, you know what, I think I'm going to take this time to go get an education, maybe start a new career. And for the members that did that, I totally understand. It makes perfect sense. And I'm happy for them too. So yeah, I mean, I think it's the best way to put it is just, everybody's motivation levels are different. And maybe mine's was a little bit more on the like recklessly, just like, I'm going to do this. Like, this is in my blood. Like, I'm always going to do music no matter what's happening in the world. I'll make it work one way or another. If I figure it out through the internet or through touring, one way it's going to happen. So I just knew that I have to make this record. I have to put all my work into it. And some other members, they weren't as motivated to do that. And that's just kind of what happens. And I mean, as you can see, I'm sure you see with plenty of other bands that are coming out of this kind of pandemic era, everybody's got to kind of adapt and rebuild. And it's what it is. Yeah.
Was it hard to find new members? Did you find them around LA?
Yeah, yes and no. I think I really just feel lucky with what we got, because I've had to look for members of different kinds, different times, you know what I mean, for tours and whatnot. And sometimes it's really easy, and sometimes it can be really hard, and feel like you're never going to find somebody that's going to be perfect fit. Or if you're going to find somebody, you're going to have to sacrifice some of the things you want. You know what I mean? Like, what we wanted as a band is pretty crazy to have somebody to do the growl vocals and have dynamics with that, can do the highs and the lows and the brutals and the black metal and all that stuff. But at the same time, I wanted somebody who could do kind of like some proggy singing and maybe even write some melodies or something like that. So it's like, you can't really expect to find somebody like that. I didn't really expect to, but I was looking for somebody that maybe that could do the most, and maybe grow into the position. But like I said, we found Kyle, and the reason I found him is because he asked me to do a guest solo for his project, Archaeologist. That's how I got to know him. I knew his music. It sounded amazing. It was super unique, and he did vocals on those, so I knew he was great. And he's from the Bay Area too, which is, for me, is very cool. It's a plus to have everybody close together, repping the Bay. You know what I mean? And yeah, the guy is just, he can do it all. It's crazy. So lucky to have found him. So for this one, I just feel, I can't say that it was too difficult, because I feel grateful that we were able to find him and not postpone anything. That was really cool. So yeah. And then the other thing is, I've known Evan for a while from touring when I was younger. So we always just kind of, if we see each other, we'll say what's up and hang out. And of course, we hadn't been able to see each other in many years, but we hit him up. I sent him music, and he was just like, dude, I'm so into this music. Like, yes, all day. So I was like, really? You really want to do this? Fuck yeah, let's go. And yeah, he committed to it. And yeah, so I feel real lucky to have such a sick lineup for this record. And yeah, the record sounds much better for it as well.
So, by the way, why did you record this new album?
Well, I recorded all the guitars, and then Evan recorded his own bass, but the majority of it was done in Nashville at Mark Lewis's studio. And the drums, the vocals were recorded there. All of the guitars were reamped there. We spent so much time just going through speakers in guitar cabs. I think we went through, it was like 27 speakers or something. Hilariously, it was like the fourth one we tried ended up being the one we liked, but we tried 27 of them. We tried every amp he had in the studio. You know what I mean? We spent so much time on drums, going back and forth from his studio into town, into Nashville, just trying to find pieces of a kit depending on what we were, hearing. Like, we would hear him try to track a song, and then we'd be like, that cymbal is out of place. We need something lower. We need something beefier. We don't have it here. We got to go into town and find it. We got to call these places and see if someone could rent it out. And it was just like a huge adventure trying to get the tones all perfect.
Yeah, you could become full or nuts recording an album so technical,
Oh man, total. I did go nuts for sure. I think so. I mean, I had previously, before even going to Nashville, spent like a year almost a year. Like I'd spent a lot of time writing, you know what I mean? So I had tons and tons of material. But then when it got serious, like it was almost a year of like staying up all night, like I felt like I got no sleep. I never would had free time or whatever, and I never went out. And I mean, not a lot of people were going out at the time anyway, but it was just like just every single day I would do like my daily things, you know, to still have an income, and then I would like in all the way into the night be recording and writing or having Zoom calls with Kyle to do the lyrics and the phrasing and doing that for a year, and then going and living in Nashville for like I went there first and left there last. So it was like 5 or 6 weeks just watching different members show up and go and like helping. And it was just like it felt like it would never ever end, dude. It was just so crazy. And yeah, so I don't know.
Did you feel like a zombie?
Yeah, a little bit, man. But I also felt, like other records, this is our fifth one, and I always know there's kind of like a mode you get into where you kind of get like sleep deprived and you kind of get used to how brutal the work is. And then when you're in that state, you start making really cool choices. You know what I mean? Like you're like, I don't know, I can imagine it's like writing a book. You know what I mean? You can't just like write some of the book and then step away for a few months and then come back to it and expect to get work done at the same progress or whatever. You're totally unaware of what's happening with all the characters and all the situations. But when you're
You
like
want to
deep in an
finish.
album for a year, you know every single song like the back of your hand. You know which one needs a little bit more work and what needs more help. And when it's coming up in the studio for the drummer to do, you know that you got to pay attention to these parts, make sure he does these fills or he improv something like that. So yeah, you feel a little crazy, but I think that's the only way to get a record done like this, at least in a timely manner. I know other crazy bands have gotten records that are super complex. It just takes them a long time, but I don't want to take a long time. I want to move on with my life. So I'd rather just, do something 5 weeks in a row or stay up all night, for 6 months or something like that to get it done.
And you were talking about all these guests. I think there are
Yes.
4 guests, right?
Yeah.
Two female and
Yeah.
2 male, and
3 females and 2
3,
and 1 male. Yeah.
especially Tori.
Yes.
Tori, she's from also Los Angeles,
Yeah, it's from Los Angeles. Yeah.
and she's working in the cinema industry, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How did you connect to her?
Well, I think the first time we met her, I can't remember how we knew, maybe through some mutual friends. It was like a little bit before she was doing super crazy stuff. She was already doing some pretty crazy stuff when we met her, but that's when we had her on Dreamless, and she did a song, The Void Alone, as well as Wind for Wings. And I think there might have been another song, but The Void Alone is the song that really popped off and people know her for. And yeah, that was awesome. She just came up to Oakland when we were working with Zach Oren, and she just, did the melody, did a bunch of harmonies, and just totally killed it. It was really awesome. And she's got like her range is like super high up, like way up there, almost like chipmunky. You know what I mean? It sounds really, really cool or whatever. And then, with the whole vision of the record before that, I didn't want to do any of that. But with this one, I was like, okay, I want to bring some of this cinematic vibe. You know what I mean? Because I mean, we take a lot of influence from sci-fi movies and those kind of like big, huge sounding movies like Prometheus or Dune or Blade Runner, or, you know what I mean? That kind of stuff. And she's literally been involved with some of the people that have worked on that music. I think she even worked in at Hans Zimmer's studio as well. So
All right.
super cool. I mean, she gets it totally, and she's got that like sound or whatever. But yeah, she really brought it on Radiant Ascension and Artifacts on that one. Just totally brings that kind of Fallujah ethereal vibe, and it cuts through all of the, there's lots of layers. There's got the drums, the bass, the guitars, and they're all just loud as fuck, just like, and her high voice is able to like cut through all of that death metal music and fit in there. It works well. It's really cool. So yeah.
Is she listening to death metal?
I mean, she really likes prog metal. I think that's some of her favorite music, but she's down with death metal. I mean, we took her out when we did a tour with Devin Townsend and Between the Buried and Me. So that's like kind of her scene. So when that tour came up, you want to come out with us? She's like, oh hell yes, yes please. You know what I mean? And then yeah, I mean Devin Townsend, he's known for having female vocals front his band and it's sounding super cool and amazing.
Like
So
Anneke?
that's her style. Yeah, exactly. And she went that's all she would talk about. Honestly, we were hanging out. Like,
And you were talking about a sci-fi movie like
yeah,
Dune. Are you
yeah. Oh
talking
my
about
God.
the first or the second Dune?
I mean, I've watched the first, and I'm pretty into the whole lore of Jodorowsky's Dune as well. I mean, the books are cool, but the new one is just incredible, man. I've watched it like maybe 15 times.
Really?
I watched it the other night too. I had some friends over and we're just hanging out. Just put it on, man. It's just so immense and huge, and it just gets me in the perfect mood for what I want the music to sound like, or what I want it to make you feel like too. So
Yeah.
that's the greatest inspiration.
I personally prefer the first one because of
Really?
the Toto music,
Okay. Yeah. All right.
the
Yeah.
very first movie, and I know that David Lynch
David Lynch. Yeah.
he rejects this movie.
Sure.
He doesn't like this movie, but this is one of my favorite movie ever.
Really? That's
It's
awesome.
so magical. It's maybe because I saw it in the theater when
Oh,
I
you
was a
did?
kid,
Wow.
so maybe I was very impressed. Maybe I saw this movie something like 30 or 40 times.
Dude, yeah,
And
you
each
did
time I
well.
discover a new editions.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
dude, that's what I love about movies. I love watching them over and over again. You realize how much
and
detail you missed, how many little intricate things they did to make it all work, Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I like that, dude. It's super interesting. I know, like you said, like David Lynch rejects it and doesn't try to rep it, but I don't know, maybe he just got down on everybody criticizing him and he's just like, I don't want to talk about it. But yeah, it's a cool movie. Yeah, for
yeah,
sure. But
and
I mean, I guess I'm new generation, but I love the new.
yeah,
My God, it's so huge. It's amazing.
Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah, God.
Yeah,
All of his movies are really good. I mean, he did Blade Runner, but like Prisoners is really good. There's a few
yeah,
other ones. Just
yeah. So
feel
many
very
different.
lucky to have him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we are talking about movies, but I can listening to this new album. I was yeah traveling through like a video game too.
Yeah, yeah.
We find found of video games, and you could write music for video games, right?
I would love to. That'd be so cool. I mean, that was like kind of the original influence for me personally, like games like Skyrim and Zelda and stuff like that. Their music is so interesting. I think Zelda is so interesting because it's like influenced by like, well, it's like Japanese people making this music, and like I feel like it's influenced between classical music and jazz, and like you could hear it. Like I've nerded out over Zelda music. Like the progressions they use are very unique, and it's like a combo of like jazz progressions mixed with like, I don't know, like classical motifs, and it has such a unique, weird sound to it. I mean, a lot of Japanese music. I really like city pop and stuff like that. Like the progressions they use from there and the key changes they do. They're so interesting and new sounding. And yeah, and then of course, Skyrim. Like honestly, it's hard for me to do music and play video games. I haven't played video games in many years because I don't know. I just have so much going on. I can't really sit down for 2 to 4 hours. I don't know. I feel like you can't have fun on video games unless you spend like 4 hours in the world or whatever. But Skyrim was a big one for me. I would just get lost in that one, and it's super atmospheric. I used to listen to the soundtrack of Skyrim just on its own, just like hearing all those sounds. It's so cool. It reminds me of like Wolves in the Throne Room or something like that. And I don't know, but yeah, video games, anything that makes you feel immersed. That's what I really love.
Yeah, and of course it reminds me one of the best death metal band, Cynic.
Oh, really? You love Cynic?
Yeah,
I listened to Cynic last night on my way
you
home.
ready? Focus.
Oh, I went to a show. No, I decided to put on Kindly Bent to Free Us on my way home last night. I've been listening to the new one a lot, over
Yeah,
and over and over again. I really like the new one. And
I was so impressed at that time by the Focus album, the
yeah,
very first album.
for sure. I mean, yeah, they were one of the band that the record that got me into them was Trace and Air. So like that just kind of showed up. When did that come out? It was 2008 or 9 or something. It was 2009 or something. That was like
Uh,
right when we were putting together our first record. We were all
yeah,
like maybe 17 or 18,
I
and just
interviewed them at that time. I can remember.
oh yeah, dude, super crazy. It just blew our mind that you could have like this like Beatles kind of sound mixed in with all these proggy insane chords. Yeah, for sure. Like change what we were doing. I think everybody or whatever. But yes, Cynic is, and then I went back and listened to Focus and got into that. Such a huge influence. Actually sent I think I sent Paul the new one. I was like, yo, you got to check it out, dude. This is definitely influenced by Cynic. Like, you know.
And Paul did write music for the cinema also.
Oh yeah, I think he briefly told me about that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but yeah, he's gotten into some crazy stuff. His writing is so good, man. His vocals and his chord choices are just so good. That's another reason why I knew I'd get along with the singer we tried out, the new singer for the new record. Is that Cynic is one of his favorite bands of all time. So I was just like, all right, it's Cynic and Meshuggah. He's like, those are my favorite bands. I was like, all right, we could do
Two
something.
crazy bands.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about this album, Empyrean?
Yes.
It's an old concept, far from our very very old concept, right? Is it a concept album?
I suppose. I mean, in a way, it's a concept album. But I wouldn't really say it is. All the lyrics kind of have a message, and the overall message is kind of like a one of positivity and being able to, you know what I mean, push through pain and get to the other side and get to, you know, the higher realm or whatever, right? Empyrean, what is the definition? I think it's like something about like the domain where like God's will and man's will become one. It's talking about like creativity, and it's like this higher realm. It's like the highest like I can't remember what it is, like highest realm of heaven. It's like something related to like pure fire. And I just thought it was a perfect title for the record. It's like super powerful sounding and super ethereal and atmospheric, but it also has to do with like what the lyrics are. The lyrics are, you know, you kind of start off in a very dark place in the beginning of the record, and it's supposed to sonically sound dark and chaotic, and the lyrics also kind of put you in a place of kind of panic, and you know what I mean, things are not in a good spot, and like the feeling of realizing you're in a bad situation, that you're in a bad path and you're a downward spiral, you know what I mean? It's almost like the realization. And then as the album continues on, it's like, what do you do with that realization? Like how do you emerge out of that? How do you push through it? Like, what are the challenges psychologically that you have to deal with to get through it? Like, usually our biggest enemy is ourself and like our emotions and keeping ourselves down. And it's just like you can kind of go through each song and read through the lyrics and see that kind of journey, because we even put it in order as that, you know what I mean? The intro song is the bitter taste of clarity, you know what I mean? It's like a realization. You know, the second song is radiant ascension. You know, it's like, what is it? How do we, you know, power ourselves up to emerge from this? You know what I mean? How do we go for it despite, you know, some of the dark feelings that are kind of holding us back? And then the third song is embrace oblivion, right? It's the concept of, you know, like you have to embrace the chaos and adapt to it. Basically, everything's not going to work out the way you want it to, but it's kind of, you know, letting yourself go into that chaos and kind of flowing with it. Like, you know, it's going to be okay. You got to be able to work with that. And it's just like concepts like that, you know, it's hoping for it to be, I mean, it's something that we relate to, all of it, deeply, you know what I mean? Because we're trying to come from a place of like, you know, realness. But I'm just, yeah, hope other people can relate to it. And I think they will, just because of what everybody's had to deal with the last couple of years. It's kind of, you know, it's like a message of real experience, I suppose. Yeah.
Do you know that John Frusciante from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, he released an album called The Empyrean?
No, really? I might have seen, I kind of went through and saw like,
you know, it's kind of
of the names and stuff like that. And I
yeah.
was just like, this is the one. There was not too many, but I didn't know it was, maybe I saw it, but I didn't know it was associated with the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Maybe he's going to call me. Who knows? Cancel.
And to finish, because this is quite the end of the interview. This album reminds me also a band created something like 20 years ago. They had a break and now they come back. You know, Death, the band Death.
DAATH.
Yeah,
of course. Yeah,
and I think
man.
it could fit together on stage, because
really,
of course, you are quite maybe more sometimes progressive, but there is something very unique in your sound too, and I think it could fit together.
That's cool. I mean, I love Emil Wurzler. That guitar player is, to me, one of the greatest guitar players alive right now, and a little underrated in my opinion. His new project for Lorner, but that's how I got to know him, was through Dath. And even before getting to know him, I saw like he had all the cool Guitar Messenger videos where he was showing you like the unique scales and like the
Mhm.
melodic minor stuff. And yeah, Dath had all those kind of dark, like they didn't just play metal, right? They were trying to give you some cool sounds and some cool riffs and scales. I mean, yeah, he's a huge influence. I mean, he's like one of the coolest guitar players ever. And it was really cool. The first time I recorded with Mark Lewis, um, it was not this record, but the record before, I did the same thing where I had to like live at his house for like five weeks. Well, that time Emil was living at Mark's house. He
Oh.
had a room he was renting in Mark's house. So I was living in one room, and then Emil was in one room over. And we're both night owls, so we would finish our daily work, and Mark would be in bed, and it would just be like Emil and I on the couch, like watching stuff on YouTube, both with guitars, and he's like showing me Django and like all these crazy, because he's super into gypsy jazz. I like figured that out. That's where all that Dath stuff kind of, it's a gypsy jazz kind of influence. So yeah, he was teaching me licks for like weeks and stuff. So that guy's amazing. So that's cool. You brought up Dath. I didn't know they were coming back as a band. I didn't.
Yeah, because
Oh wow, that's really cool.
they actually they record a new album,
Oh wow, cool. I'm gonna go look. I'm gonna go look into that.
and they're back with the band. So let us know when you're on tour especially in Europe.
Yeah, well, I mean, it looks like, I don't want to leak anything, but it looks like we're gonna be heading to Europe November, December with Rivers of Nile. So that tour we did in America with them, direct supporting them. It looks like we're going to do that in Europe. And we're going to bring along Empyrean, which is going to be fucking awesome, and Allegiant, which is going to be really awesome. It's a super sick lineup. So hopefully I won't get in trouble for leaking that, but whatever, dude. I'm super hyped to get back to Europe. It's been so long. It's so cool. I didn't know if it was going to happen. I don't know. I was going to see my friends in Spain and France and Germany and all those places. I have friends all over there. And I just thinking the entire pandemic, I'm like, am I ever going to hang out with these people again? Am I ever going to perform and see these kinds of crowds? And so I'm just super grateful and excited to have a record we can take out, and that there's a tour coming up and we're allowed to go into they're letting us in the country, you know. I mean, we'll see. They might not let us in. We'll find out. They might look at me and deny me, but I don't know. But it's looking like we'll be back November. And then of course, you know, we're going to hit it hard, real hard on this record. So hopefully we'll be back quite a few times.